Hey everyone, it's Monica. Welcome back to Homeschool Voices. Today I'm chatting with Becky and she's going to tell us how she got her two homeschool kids into college.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. So apparently I have heard that you have actually got your homeschool kids into college. Is that true?
That is true, both of them. I have two children and both of them, one has already graduated last May and the other one is a junior.
Hooray. So
Yeah.
I want to hear the story. I want to know what kind of homeschooling you did,
Okay.
hear how old they are, and then how you actually got into college. Well, let's just start with, what was your philosophy homeschooling? Because there's all different kinds of homeschoolers. What
Right.
were you?
That's a great question. We did not begin when having kids. We actually bought a home that was in a good school system because we didn't think anything other than just putting our kids into school. So having that as our plan, the kind of roadblock to school happened when I went in to meet the kindergarten teacher the spring before my daughter went into kindergarten. And in May, the classroom was a mess and the children were like, you could just see the tension in the classroom. And I thought, everybody can have a bad day. So I'll make another visit and just to kind of see. And I made a visit on another day and it just was the same thing. And so I brought my concerns to the principal at the time of that in the school. And she basically said, oh, don't worry. You leave your child at the gate and we'll take care of them from there. And so that, I'm sure, to some parents is fine. And to this parent, it wasn't fine. So I was like, no, that's just not who I am. So I decided that year I had friends who were homeschooling. And so it was not something that was completely foreign. And I just said, for a year, I'm going to keep her home until, we see how it develops. But it was, quite frankly, God was so good because I know that there are situations where people will say, Satan will attack you, be ready. And for whatever reason, we were just in a bubble of goodness. And it was the most incredible time. And my little guy, who is about 17 months younger than my oldest, but 2 years behind in school just because where his little age falls, was completely involved with us. And it was magical. Like she learned to read. I had never taught anybody how to read before. So I was super nervous about all those things that you think, oh my gosh, how will I ever do this? And you have to be a teacher to do this. And it's just what happened. So I
Did you use a program to teach her to read, or did you just...
I did. I think we used like Horizons, which was very just kind of grammar and phonics based. And, she just was ready too. So I didn't push anything that wasn't ready to sort of go on its own. Mm-hmm. She was happy because she's a real visual learner. So it came with lots of, pretty colors and it was fun to look at. And so it was just really engaging for her. And then my son is a very auditory learner. So he would just sit around and listen to us and just literally she would take tests and he would answer all the questions and she would get so mad because how does he know? He's not even in school.
How much younger was, how old were they at the time?
She was going into kindergarten as a brand new 5-year-old. She's an end of July birthday. So she was a brand new 5-year-old and he is, March, 19 months later from her. So, he was like 3.5-ish. Yeah. So he was little. Yeah. But he was that kid that loved to watch, animal videos and he just knew all the facts. He could do that in his brain. Mm-hmm. Where she was much more of a let me see, feel, touch, all that. He was like just tell me once and I can tell you everything you ever wanted to know. So it was a really great balance between the two of them. I used a lot of oral hands-on. I had some great curriculums. We did a lot of reading. Basically I made my day throughout their schooling fairly simple. There was math every day and mostly I did math around the whole year because math is one of those things that falls out of your head.
Yeah.
And then the beginning of math books and the end of math books tend to be very like, remember when we 3 months ago did this?
Yeah.
And I'm a curriculum finisher. So they were able to like speed through the very beginning and the very end of those books because we never took the break. So my rule of thumb is if you get an A, just keep going. Like you can do 2 or 3 in a day if you're understanding concepts. If you're not understanding concepts, then, we slow down. We go through it because we were, I knew I would give them educations that had gaps, but I felt like if I gave them an education where they knew how to learn and how to find the kind of mastery that they needed, then they could walk into any situation and fill the gaps that I readily available to them.
But you're comfortable with that, because that's a big thing that gives a lot of people anxiety, is this idea that you have to do everything and they have to do it perfectly and they can't have any gaps.
I think that's not practical. I think that really sends us into kind of a downward spiral. Certainly that's where we kind of need to come and champion our fellow moms and dads and say, it just doesn't exist. There's, you kind of look at your kid. And for me, it was very much where I had 2 different kinds of learners. So I needed to make sure that they knew how to learn inside of those comfortable places and then spend time outside of those comfortable places so that they could learn dynamically in a variety of situations. But we did a lot of oral work. Like we did most of our history orally. I'm also a writing teacher. So they did a lot of reading and writing. But writing
orally, you had discussions.
We did. Most of our history, we would talk through it because it would bring in geography and it would bring in cultural situations and religious beliefs and economic situations. And history is, it's a story. So the story, if it doesn't make sense, is a story that we can readily forget. And we repeat mistakes and all that kind of stuff. So I brought it in as just the different stories of times and the world. And I was public school brought up. So my education in this area was not great. I didn't feel like I needed to be perfect. I felt like I could sit right next to them and be so excited about learning things right along with them. And when we had questions, we aren't in, the 1800s. I had Google. So we would go and we would search and we would go to the library and we would ask people that we knew that knew more than we did. And so I didn't feel on any given day that I had to answer questions immediately. I felt like we could together find out the answers to our questions and, and kind of put that together as we sort of developed history and geography. And the sciences were a little bit less like that. I did, once they got into like high school, I have smart friends who are, fancy in those areas and I'm not. So I felt like I put them into great hands in other moms who were doctors or, that kind of thing. So
you just used your social network basically, and would you make like small little classes or something, and one of those moms would teach it, or was it?
We did. We were part of a Christian baseball league. And within that, I had a mom come to me and she said, I know that you have this writing gift. Will you teach writing in this little co-op that we're putting together? And I said, of course. So that then blossomed into, there was an artist that came and taught the kids, a culinary genius who literally walked through cooking all the things with the kids, a science mom, myself, I think someone did drama, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it was just a network of friends who, some of them became friends. I didn't know them before, but it was good. It was a great situation. But I did all of my kids' schooling probably up until about like 5th grade. But I married a math guy, so he helped a lot. I think one of the blessings I had was I didn't feel like I had to have all the answers. I felt like I could kind of pull that in.
So what'd you do after 5th grade? So like upper elementary and middle school?
So that's when we joined the co-op situation. So with that co-op situation came other smart mommies that just paralleled with me. So I was still in charge of all the things, but one day a week, They just had teachers that would go through and teach, and then they would have homework that they would do then during the week. So
Is that practical conversations, or is it a different one?
it wasn't that. No, it was just co-op. So we did, like, I had a mom who did like the science curriculum, and she just used apologetics. So we all got the apologetics book, and the kids just went through it together. So they had sort of a classroom experience. They learned from a different mom, but that was Wednesdays, and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, they were with me, and we went through all the things and talked about all the things. But the main person driving the force of that academia was that teacher that mom that, taught them whatever, who knew more than I did.
Cool. So it sounds like it was a very, like, a group of people, and you just kind of came together to take turns and teach things, but it wasn't like an organized thing where you get a transcript or anything like that.
I did not have that. Then we fast forward a couple more years, and then we are a pretty social and sports-based family. So sports became a bigger deal. So there's a local Baptist elementary, middle school, high school that's very close to us that I won't say their name because I wouldn't necessarily put my kid inside that school for academics, even though it's very acclaimed academically. And, we're a different religion, so it didn't quite meet all the things, but they were very gracious and let our kids play sports. We could have taken classes, we could have done that stuff, we didn't, but my kids played around the year, all the sports, did all the things, traveled to games, went to CIF, all the stuff. And through them allowing the kids to play sports there, they also held their transcripts, which made it easy for me then, which is your big question of how did I get them into college? That is pretty much what happened, was because the school held a transcript. It didn't have the stamp of the school, but it had the name of the school. So the kids both took the SAT, and they chose a smaller private college. It's got about 5,000-6,000 kids in it. It is a great choice, but being that it was private, it was a little bit easier. Like, I think some of the difficulty in getting your kid into college stems from doing different kind of universities. Like state university, pretty much anybody. I mean, it's not difficult to get in. If you're a resident, you have a lot of in there. And then most of the friends that I know did either home transcripts for a Cal State and an SAT, and it was just easy to get in. With a private college, based on my kids' SATs alone, which I'm going to say were fair, not like, woo, I don't have the smartest kids on the block. I have great learners, but, they're very, they're just, they're very fine. They're like AB students. So their SAT reflected that. The ACT, they did a little bit better on the ACT. So for homeschoolers, because of how we teach, and this is not everybody, but just it's sort of good to take both of them, because as homeschoolers typically will do a little bit better on an ACT. And, so that's what my kids did, which did not help them get in. It just gave them more money when they got in, because they got in based on their SAT, but we got bigger scholarships because of they got in because of their SAT, but they got bigger scholarships because of the ACT. Right. So there's the money thing.
So you're saying that you had friends that when they went into state schools, I forget which one you were saying, was they used a home transcript, like the parents provided transcript. Mm-hmm. So I just want to be really clear, because people ask a million questions about
all
this.
The time.
Right. No one else had to certify or, check that transcript. The parent made it.
The parent made it. What it needs to do, though, and this is where there is any kind of question, because homeschooling, depending on your state, I'm in California. So in California, what needed to happen was that the SAT and the grades given needed to reflect one another. Like if I had said my kids got all A's, never anything else, and then they took an SAT and got like a 900, the school might go, that doesn't work for us. So there's going to be, in any university or whatever you're looking for, you want to go and research what the requirements are. And then you want to be able to have the transcripts that your children have earned, and then the SAT that they would get, or ACT, and that would need to meet the standard of the university. That they can't deny you access if you're meeting the requirements. Now, if you're looking at something like a Stanford or a USC, that's going to be much different. In those situations, your service, if you've published something, if you have worked for if you've worked for like the Chamber of Commerce, or if those kinds of things will matter also.
Kind of a resume in addition.
Exactly. And you may get more grief with home grades, but not necessarily, because a lot of those institutions have said where, homeschoolers have done very well. And so they kind of look to diversify. So, it shouldn't be a place of worry. It should just be a place where you're informing yourself. We didn't have any issue at all. We never had any kind of red flag issue at all. Like, it was seamless and even so much so that when my kids went to college, they were like, Mom, this is exactly how we learned at home. So it was so easy for them. Like, college for them was, there just wasn't a speed bump at all. They learned in classrooms very similar to how we learned at home. And then socially, it was just easy. They were like, woohoo, they love it. So
great. So they're thriving and doing well. Yep. And so one is graduated, right? What does that one major in? It's a girl or boy?
You know what? She's pretty great. She's she was sitting at us as a senior, and she wanted to go to beauty school. And we looked at a couple different beauty schools, because I was like, I will look at all the things. And in the beauty schools that we looked at, and I'm sure there's lovely ones out there, but the ones that we looked at, there was just a component of some darkness of personalities that were also there that I was uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
And I said, the beauty school thing is great. People have hair on every continent. So it's a great thing. Like, you can go everywhere and, this is a great thing. Yeah. However, I'm going to ask that you give me 2 years of this school that I kind of want you to go to. And she, okay, Mom. She's like, all right. So we applied to the university. She got in, she went, and within 6 weeks, she called home and said, I love it. I want to stay, and I want to be a teacher, which she had said before she left, I will not be a teacher. Really? And I was fine with that. But she is now an English teacher. She teaches honors lit, which I feel like she's come home and worked the farm. Right. I couldn't be more proud. Yeah. During COVID, because of the kind of situation it was, the doors opened to her to be able to go into a classroom and teach both through Zoom and kids in person. Mm-hmm. She's down in Irvine, California, doing that. So it was, it's pretty amazing. She's actually finishing up her California credential right now. She doesn't ever expect to be in a public school situation, because that's not what she wants to do. She wants to be able to talk about Jesus and literature. She can't do that in a public situation, but that's kind of her niche. And like, so she's
school, maybe.
So she's looking at private schools, and she and finishing up her credential right now. So that's where she's at.
She not only went to college, but she's a productive member of society with a job.
She is. She is. And then my son actually wants to teach history. So he's in right now junior and wants to teach history. So they're both academic. They're both, smart kids, and are giving back already. So it's, they actually spent my daughter's fall senior year, and then my son's sophomore fall semester, traveling to 18 countries and learning. Professors would fly in and teach them about the culture. They would work with the people. They were in some of the most amazing situations, major poverty in India. They spent time in Malta. They were, I think, on all but one continent. I mean, it was amazing. So they did, and that was through their school. So they spent 5 months gone and traveling the world and learning things that you ask yourself as a parent, how do I teach my adult child? And that was like the best deal ever. They went and they were with, I think it was like a group of like 25 kids and then adults, and they went and made the globe their home. So they've got a lot, both literature and historically, they have a lot to be able to pour into this next generation of learners. So it's pretty exciting. Like, they're such better teachers now than I ever was, but I feel like, that's the whole point. We kind of want to pour into these kids and have them go and live their dreams and be great and be better than what we were. So they're definitely that.
I see. If my kids aren't better than me when they're adults, then I did something wrong.
Yep. And mine probably did that by the time they were, 15. So it was, they're just, people were like, why are you homeschooling them? And, that answer it's just such a difficult question to answer. And they would say, oh, I'm not patient enough. And I was like, I don't have any awards in patience. I have two things. One is I can read, and therefore I can read curriculum and I can read books and I can share them. And the other one I have is that I love my children. And with those two things, I feel like mistakes will be made, victories will be won. But every day I get up and I can still read and I still love my children. So I can homeschool them. It just is. I just don't set limits before myself that aren't really clear that they're there. And if there are limits, then I find ways to leap over them and solutions to those problems, and we jump over them and we figure it out. But because not everything comes easy. Some things come really hard. So, and that's okay.
That's like literally, you sound like me. That's what I tell people. If you're not patient, you will learn how to be over time. Just because you love your kids, and where there's a will, there's a way. And if there's a problem, figure it out.
Right. That's right. And I think sometimes you hear your child's voice come back at you, and it's that voice that was impatient, and you're like, oh, I do have to fix this because now it's mirroring me. And I'm like, I'm really humbled. Yeah. So, it's, God works in great ways. And 100% I was imperfect, but it wasn't like I ever said, well, I'm doing my best and given up. I always said, how can tomorrow be better? What can I do to make this better? And I'm totally fine with that. I don't have to be perfect today. I just get to love my children and pour that into the best ways I know. And quite frankly, to be honest, I had said to them, if I find a situation that we can afford that's better than homeschooling, I'll put you in it. And we just never did. So I homeschooled them from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And nothing better ever came along. And we did have conversations when things might look like they were pretty good. We sort of discussed it. And all the time, both kids said, we want to stay exactly where we are. And even in college, I said, so now that you're out, now that you're doing this thing, what are your feelings on homeschooling? And both of them said, 100%. We would have never changed it. We loved what we did. We are so well prepared. We're such happy people. Whether or not they homeschool their kids or not, they're in a completely different situation because they're around we're in the West Valley and they're in Irvine where there's a lot more options. Mm-hmm. My daughter is now engaged to an amazing young man that she met on a missions trip. And his whole family is in education and in private school education down by where she lives. So it's kind of like this homeschool situation inside of the school situation because they're teachers in the school. So it's a completely different, it's completely different for them. But both of them as adults, look back and say, thank you. Thank you for doing this for us because it gave us a great education. And I think because we were a social family, it was never, I would kind of snicker when people were like, oh, you homeschool. I'm like, it's okay that you don't get it. It's okay. It's okay that some people have a small, narrow vision of things. I did too. When we first started, I was like, I don't have enough children. I think I need like 10 kids. And I don't wear clothes from here to the floor. Like you had a picture and I didn't fit into that picture. So I didn't necessarily see how it would work for me. But I soon learned, I went to a CHIA conference, which is the Christian Homeschooling Education Association that has like curriculum that you get to look at. And I looked around the room and most people looked very similar, to me, in just that we're just people, there's not something completely different about us. So I was like, okay, mamas, daddies, let's go.
So what is one last piece of advice that you would give to a mom or a dad who's considering homeschooling, but it's just especially with COVID, there's so many people considering it, but it just seems so unknown and so scary, and they're not sure if they can do it and make it work.
Well, I would say, first of all, for me, having my husband be supportive of me was big. So if you have a parent who is not going to be supportive, I think that's a very difficult thing to leap into, because then it kind of becomes a, well, I told you so kind of game. And it really needs to be the two of you in this together to love on your kids in all the ways. Like, I mean, it's not just academics, it's everything, because they're home with you. I would say, oh gosh, that's such a hard question. Because I hate to say just do it, but I feel like it's just to do it. If you're thinking about it, especially right now, because I don't think there's anything worse than having your kids sit and look at a screen all day, and then still not learn. I mean, it's really hard. So I don't know. I think it's great. I mean, the relationship that I have with my children is, I'm a writing teacher, and I don't really even have words to describe how incredible my children are and how incredible the relationship is that I have with them. It is, they went off to college and you think, oh gosh, there's that brokenness, but my kids took care of me. Like they involve me because they love me and they want to be with me. I know.
That's what I say too. I say the relationship building is, and some people say, well, I can't stand to be around them for too long. But I think that you learn though, because everyone has irritating things they do. If you learn how to be around each other, and you get closer.
Well, and I think that's a really great thing. When people say that to me, I love that, because if you have a kid who's doing something, or there's that situation in your relationship that's irking you, I think that's not a time to be far away. I think that's a time to come closer together and work through what that is. And if there's a behavior that has a very short shelf life, then eradicate it, like work on that. If it needs to be a child that's more obedient, you're not going to solve those issues by pushing them out the door. You're going to solve those issues better, I think, by clinging in and cleaving to one another. So, I would say if they're tough, jump in and find their way to be close. I have, like I said earlier, I have those two different learners. They're two different personalities. They have closeness differently. So it wasn't just the same. It wasn't just a carbon copy. It was a completely different kid, even though they were raised under the same roof. One I needed to discipline differently than the other. Like, I mean, you're dynamic parenting once you have more than one child. So, but I would say the fears, sure, be afraid. There's lots of things. I mean, we don't want to ruin our kids. I mean, up until my daughter left for college, she's like, am I smart enough? I mean, how do you know until you're there? So there are a lot of fears. They're right. But don't let fear hold you back. Make it the engine, and just, make it great. Don't let fear win. Fear only has as much power as you give it. So I would say, don't give it any.
I think that is just the perfect note to end on. Actually, we're about to run out of time. And
Perfect.
If I could think of one thing to tell parents, it would be, do not let fear rule your life. Just be brave.
Yep.
And move forward and find a way to make it happen.
That's right. I love it.
Thank you so much, Becky, for joining me. I really enjoyed our chat.
I did too. Thanks so much.
I hope you found that helpful and encouraging. If you like this video, please click thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please click subscribe and the notification bell next to it. In the meantime, happy homeschooling and have a great day.